Yeah, as James was saying, I'm from the flood risk management team at the County Council, and yeah, going to just focus in a bit more on flooding. So I am from the lead local flood authority team at the council, or flood risk management team, and our sort of overarching role is to coordinate the management of flood risk. And so identify, bring together stakeholders, those responsible for mitigating flood risk. But important to note, the county council is not responsible for resolving all flood risks. So we'll get into that. So on the right, there's a picture from our strategy. So that we have this coordinatory role, but there's various other agencies involved in the management of local flood risk, including the Environment Agency, water companies, highway authorities, so both the County Council for the local highway network, and then national highways for trunk roads. And districts and borough councils also get involved as well. Now, roles and responsibilities. So, yeah, there's lots of different sources of flood risk, and those are often interlinked. So basically, it's really important that the agencies I mentioned work together, and that we also engage with the communities in those different areas. So this picture is available in the local flood risk management strategy if you want to take a closer look at that. Just as an example, and I think there might be some people from Bottisford on the call today. Again, an image from our strategy, which just helps to illustrate that there can be a number of different agencies involved in a particular given area. But essentially, if you're unsure who to contact about an issue, feel free to get in touch with ourselves using the email, which I have on the last slide, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. So as you're probably aware, there have been a number of flood events over the last 2.5 years. It's probably safe to say that Leicestershire has been hit harder than probably any other place in the UK, possibly. So starting with some surface water flooding in Oadby and Wigston a couple of summers ago. Then we had about 50 properties flood during Storm Barber, and then Storm Henk almost a couple of years ago now, where over 400 properties experienced internal flooding. Then September last year, we had a couple of fairly large surface water flood events, so intense rainfall. Surface water drainage systems can't cope, so both Market Harbour and the Blaby flood event, that was another 50 properties. And then the 6th of January of this year is probably the largest flood event in living memory in Leicestershire, and you know, possibly historically ever, so recorded anyway. So about 700 properties flooding. So it's been a particularly hard time for residents, businesses affected, and our sympathies continue to be with those affected by flooding. I've highlighted there that so there's those kind of 2 large winter flood events. Hopefully we don't see another flood event of that size this year, but it's certainly not out of the question. There was quite a bit of concern about Storm Claudia a couple of weeks ago, as you probably saw. Thankfully, it turned out to be not too bad, but it has put us in a position now where, whereas there was a bit of capacity in the ground, in the soil to take up rainfall and water, after Storm Claudia, some of that has been taken up. That storage has been taken up. So if we were to have another large storm, then the rivers are going to respond more quickly to that rainfall than they did during Storm Claudia. So, yeah, really important that we think about how can we be prepared for flooding. And just to say as well, both for ourselves and other agencies, because of the amount of flooding over the past couple of years, it has been a real challenge to get to responding to communities and supporting them. We've taken steps to kind of increase our capacity. But yeah, just apologies if you're one of those people that maybe has kind of waited longer for an email response than we'd like, or what have you. Yeah, we're doing what we can, yeah. So for the second half of this presentation, I'm going to talk through the local flood risk management strategy. So our updated strategy was published in February 2024, so almost 2 years ago, and it's summarized by this wheel. So the five objectives you see in the middle. If someone were to ask me, someone I meet that's new that asks me what I do, and then often they ask me, well, how do you manage flood risk? Then these are the five things I would probably say. So we need to try as best as possible as communities and agencies to look after existing assets and watercourses. Then encouraging sustainable development. We need to be looking at development and trying to make sure that those developments aren't at risk of flooding, certainly to certain standards, and insofar as possible that they don't increase or the risk of flooding elsewhere. And then flood preparedness, response, recovery. So that's the main focus of today. Better understanding flood risk is the fourth one. So working together as agencies and communities to understand our flood risk, and so we can make informed decisions. And then sometimes local projects, so either ourselves or other agencies are able to deliver local projects either to reduce the risk of flooding or to potentially increase resilience. And then we have 5 principles around the outside. So working in partnership, I've already discussed. Working with communities, so that's really important. We also try to deliver other benefits whilst we're trying to manage flood risk. We need to consider climate change in everything that we do, and we need to take a risk-based approach. So this doesn't apply just to our team, but it's all the different agencies involved and also communities as well. So going a bit more into that first objective. So the county council, for example, has a responsibility to manage the local highway network, and that includes looking after highway drainage. So this image on the left there is a gully being cleansed. So gullies are routinely cleansed on a risk-based approach. But if you see a gully that is blocked or is not working, then please do contact use the contact details that I'll provide at the end. Just to say as well, during those big river flood events, it may look as though the gullies aren't working, and they are blocked. But often what happens is the rivers are high, so the surface water can't get into the watercourses. So that might be what you're seeing there. Or certainly at this time of year, it might be just the grate of the gully has become blocked with leaves, which might be able to shift those quite quickly, and you'll see the water disperse. In the middle here, just got an example of a watercourse, which at the top there, it sort of required maintenance, and then you can see at the bottom there. So riparian landowners, or the adjacent landowners are responsible for maintaining watercourses, and then ourselves as the county council, we regulate that for smaller watercourses, and then for main rivers, so larger rivers, the Environment Agency regulate that, and sometimes they also use their powers, if you like, to do watercourse maintenance themselves. And then finally on the right there, there's the Environment Agency have got an asset map online, which if you have a look at that, you can see the assets in your area and when they were last inspected and so on. So particularly if you live near a larger river, that might be of interest. What can you do to help? Encourage you to check your own assets. So gullies on your house, gutters. Maybe you've got a drain at the end of your driveway. Just check those, make sure they are maintained, free of silt and debris. Then if you can see a flood risk asset that there's an issue in your area, whether that be a watercourse or a gully, report the suspected issues to agencies. And as well, if you do have a watercourse kind of nearby, encourage kind of effective watercourse maintenance that encourages the flow of water, but also we want to do that in an environmentally sensitive way. Second objective, and quite a hot topic at the moment, is encouraging sustainable development. So we look to try and, well, there's policies in place where we're trying to reduce the risk of flooding off-site. There's a lot more I could say here. You might see what we call sustainable drainage systems, such as the one in the picture there, which are designed to kind of temporarily store flood water during an event. And they can also be designed to provide other benefits as well. In terms of our team's role, we respond to approximately 900 consultations each year from the district and borough councils. And also, most of the district councils have been working on updating their local plans. So they kind of set out how land is going to be used and housing allocations. So we and other agencies involved in flood risk management are consulted on these, and we provide comments for the policy on those. What can you do? So if you have concerns about planning applications or local plans in your area, encourage you to engage in that process, either providing comments or planning applications or engaging in local plan consultations. If you're a parish council, you might want to consider a neighbourhood plan and the flood risk policies within that. And also, if you see issues with the assets on new developments, such as these SUDs, do feel free to report those in, and we can take a look. Then third objective, and probably the main one in terms of this session, is the kind of flood preparedness, response to and recovery from flood events. Sorry. So what can you do before? Encourage you to report issues and encourage others to report. Have a personal flood plan or household emergency plan, as James was talking about, or those community response plans. Encourage others to be flood ready in your community. Sign up to flood warnings if they're available in your area, and check your insurance as well. If you're at risk of flooding, there's something called the Build Back Better policy, which your policy might have or might not have, which means if your property were to flood, then there would be funding available to make it more resilient or recoverable from flood events. So some people have benefited from that after the the flood events over the last couple of years. During an event, do implement those plans, do report flooding, and of course pay attention to the advice and guidance in weather warnings and that's put out. So, for example, not driving through floodwater. And after, you can assist with investigations and support affected residents. And there's lots more I could say there. We have also been running drop-in sessions, sometimes after those flood events, sometimes in preparedness. We had one in Broughton Astley last week. We tend to have Flood Mary and her flood trailer along to those. She's actually in Loughborough today and tomorrow. So if you live near Loughborough or in Loughborough, you can drop down and see her. And I think there's details on the council's website on when and where she is situated there. Also, in the new year, we're hoping to bring out a community resilience fund, which parish councils and other communities might be able to apply into. So I think details of that are going to be released in the new year. But that is a result of some of the additional funds which have been put towards flood risk management. Just a couple more. I've gone slightly over time. So better understanding flood risk, our fourth objective. So we do this in various ways. Sometimes there's desk-based information. Sometimes we need to go out on site and have a look at things. Sometimes we need to do surveys on site. And also we might need to do some modelling as well using computer software. So various different ways in which we do that. What can you do? Please do record evidence of flooding when it's safe to do so and share with the relevant agencies. Check your local flood risk and report any suspected issues with the mapping that you think there may be. And as well, sometimes we're able to do site visits with communities to have a look at potential issues and understand flood risk better. Last objective, so local projects. So sometimes we are able to secure funding towards flood alleviation schemes. So the image on the left is some flood risk storage going in upstream of Breedon. Or sometimes we can get funding towards property flood resilience measures such as flood barriers or doors. And then natural flood management is becoming quite popular as well. So if you look at a catchment upstream of a flood risk area, can you manage the land in such a way that it helps to kind of temporarily store water upstream? So what can you do? So if you do have a project in your area, please support the community engagement in that. And also, if you have ideas for projects, then they are welcome. But it's worth saying that these do take quite a bit of resource. So we are sort of limited in what we can do, but we do try where we can. So thank you for listening. Apologies for going a bit over time. Some final takeaways. Please do check your flood risk. So there's a great gov.uk website where you can type in your postcode, select your address, and it will tell you about your risk of flooding from rivers and surface waters and the sea, but that's not really a problem in Leicestershire, hopefully. Do check if you can sign up for flood warnings. Flood Mary, who I mentioned, has got some great independent advice available on our website. And also you can visit our web pages. Most of the pictures and the diagrams are from our strategy, which is available there. And there's advice on who to contact in different situations and other advice. And if you're ever unsure, just contact us using the email address at the bottom. Cool. Thank you for listening.